first thing on our agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance and Oscar.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have roll call?
Commissioner Frericks,
Here.
Commissioner Garcia Cadena,
Here.
Commissioner Villegas,
Here.
Commissioner Partida.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Okay, and so next up on our agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members to address the commission on subjects that are related to LAFCo's purview and are not part of the regular agenda. These are and anything also that is on the consent. So do we have any members of the public that wish to make public comment on items not on our regular agenda?
I have no public comment cards, Chair.
Great. And are we taking comment online? Yes. And do we have any?
There are no hands raised for comment.
Okay, great. So that will move us on to our consent item.
I'm happy to move the consent agenda, items 4 through 6.
Great.
Commissioner Frericks,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia Cadena.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Villegas,
Aye.
Commissioner Partida.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Moving right along. So next up, we have a public hearing. And this is considering a resolution for the Elkhorn Fire Protection District.
Thank you. I do have some slides that I put together just to provide some visual aids that I'll be going through for today's public hearing. This is just it is the visual of what this action will do. It would dissolve the Elkhorn Fire Protection District and County Service Area 9 and annex both of those territories into the Spring Lake Fire Protection District. And I included this map purely just to provide the commission with the context of the broader county and what's happening. The rural areas are blanketed with rural fire protection districts. And so this is just a quick image of how the consolidated Spring Lake Fire Protection District would, interface with the other districts in the county. Just for a quick review of LAFCo's review of the Elkhorn Fire District over the years. It was formed in 1965. There's been a number of municipal service reviews. There's been, chronic issues that the district has been dealing with, and the board and the chief at the district of making their best efforts to be responsive and provide to the community. But it's just been difficult because there's not the population base to really support enough volunteers to fully stand up a volunteer department in a consistent, sustainable way. It's the character of the Elkhorn Fire Protection District is very rural and ag-based, and there's not a large population there to begin with. And there's no development projected out there. There's no infrastructure. So it's the county general plan keeps it in ag land. A lot of it's under Williamson Ag contracts and large farming operations out there. The district did rely on mutual aid and auto aid for a number of years. In 2016, our LAFCo MSR recommended that the district contract with the cities of West Sacramento and Woodland for services, but that didn't come to fruition. I'm told that the district representatives met with the cities once, but it didn't come to anything. So then when LAFCo did its second municipal service review in 2022, we we recommended just outright dissolution of the district. And that's been working through various stages of implementation ever since. The reasons for the action today really are about the sustainability of the district. The MSR found that the volunteer model is not sustainable. There's increasing calls on I-5 and Old River Road. Just by population increases, there's, Google Maps and Waze are diverting traffic down Old River Road that didn't used to go that way. There's things happening outside of the district control, and it's just, not able to always respond with sufficient resources to the incidents. Typically, the Elkhorn district is sending one person out there, sometimes two, and it's just really not a safe environment to do traffic control on I-5 or Old River Road, or to have someone to switch off with on providing CPR and things like that. When we did the municipal service review back in 2022, the committee of rural chiefs, told me that really the safe minimum response is at least 3 people for an emergency response and 4 for a fire call. And the data shows that Elkhorn is, averaging a little over 1 person per call. The district does receive quite a bit of mutual aid and auto aid support over the years, and it just doesn't really have the resources to reciprocate. And so that's been a frustration of the cities as well. This map shows so Spring Lake, as it is today, is a contract district. And the reason why we're folding Elkhorn and CSA 9 is to create kind of a larger consolidated contract district. And the color coding up there is showing the various city service providers. So the purplish bluish is the territory that the city of Woodland would serve under contract, 2 different contracts actually. In the lower left corner, the pink is the area that the city of Davis serves. There's actually a portion of Spring Lake in the blue that UC Davis serves with their own fire department, excuse me. And the light green are the areas that the city of West Sac would serve. So I just wanted to recap. There's been some changes with the Elkhorn Fire Protection District Board of Directors that I've been getting. Although the board unanimously adopted a resolution to dissolve in August 2024, and that started this process. They appointed 2 of their board members to serve on a reorganization committee with me, and also members of the Spring Lake Board and county staff from CSA 9. Staff's provided multiple updates at Elkhorn Fire Protection District board meetings. Then we recently had a community meeting on April 8th, and some board members indicated that they felt that they were pressured into adopting the resolution and were having second thoughts. The district called a special meeting the following week on April 13th. It actually had 2 main items on it. One was to figure out their presentation here this morning, and another item was on the agenda to consider actually rescinding the resolution requesting dissolution, but that item didn't pass. So I don't think the board members are no longer probably in unanimity over this, but they seemed inclined to let the constituents, represent their desires through the protest process. So they talked about sending a rebuttal letter to LAFCo, but I haven't received anything. And I don't believe any of the board members were able to be here today, although Chief Young is here from the district. And so the recommendation is to adopt the resolution dissolving both districts, amending the Spring Lake sphere of influence, and annexing both territories into the Spring Lake FPD. I did happen to have a conversation with my counterpart in San Diego LAFCo that recently went through something like this, and he had some suggestions on how to bolster some of the assets and transfer information to avoid some of the problems that San Diego LAFCo incurred. So there is an amended resolution on your dais that Eric and I just worked on late last night. And it shows the track changes of what's been changed and modified since the version that went out on the packet. And there are copies up here, both a clean version and a track changes version, if anyone in the audience would like to see that as well. So that's all I have. I'm going to stop for now.
Great.
I'm sorry. I do have one more slide. My fault. Next steps. I wanted to talk about, there is going to be a protest process. So assuming that LAFCo approves the resolution today, staff will be posting notices in the Woodland Democrat and mailing out notices to everyone, to all the landowners and registered voters. There'll be a protest process culminating in a hearing that staff will run on Tuesday, May 26th. It's just kind of a last effort for people to be able to submit protests in person, although anyone can email them to us as well or hand them in. The results, the protest thresholds are indicated up there, and then we'll close the protest hearing on the 26th and then have time to tabulate the results and prepare a resolution for this regular LAFCO meeting on May 28th. And the plan is, assuming everything goes through, the effective date of changeover would be July 1 of the fiscal year. Okay, and that's really my last slide.
That's really it. Great. Are there any questions before I open up the public hearing?
I do have one.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. At the risk of asking, because we want to be fully transparent around this process, Christine, thank you for the process description. Can you use, or maybe Eric, just briefly, very briefly, describe kind of what is in the red line version, because not everybody has it, or those that are watching online don't have the benefit of it. And we certainly don't want to appear to be making significant changes without sufficient notification to the public. So there's not a lot in here, but you can just briefly describe what they are. That's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
We were able to post if anyone's in the audience listening online, I don't believe anyone is, but it is posted on our website so people could find it if they need it. Basically what it does is it kind of shores up the transfer of assets. It references the Elkhorn Fire Protection District they're in the county treasury, but they're also using an outside bank account as kind of a cash fund. So it just clarifies that account needs to be closed and that needs to be inventoried and provided to the county treasurer. It just itemizes the apparatus that they have, things of that nature. It also clarifies there was some inconsistent language about whether Elkhorn's had a special tax versus an assessment. Just to clarify, it is a special tax, a $250 per acre special tax that will be retained through this process, and that's in the terms and conditions as well.
The changes are mainly just to clarify and to give clear guidance. Even without those edits, those provisions would have had to been, or those actions would have had to been taken, but this is just to make it very clear for everybody so that they understand what to do going forward.
Got it. Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Great. So with that, I will open up the public hearing. Anybody wanting to speak on this item?
I have
We
five.
have cards, right?
I do. I have five
Okay,
public
great.
comment cards, Chair. And the first speaker is Don Beeman.
Good morning. I'm Don Beeman. I live in Woodland, but I farm at Elkhorn. 5 miles north of I-5 on 117 and 5 miles south on River Road. And I've got 10 to 15 employees in that area when we're working in the field. And if something happens to one of my employees and we need a first aid call, I know that Elkhorn can be there within 5 or 10 minutes, where West Sacramento or Woodland's going to take at least 20 minutes to get there. And in the afternoons when I-5 is backed up to 102 and the River Road is 2 miles an hour, my guys came and pull off of 117 on the River Road. The traffic is that bad. So my question is, how can they service us from Woodland to get over to Elkhorn to serve what goes on over there? And I know it's a small fire department, at least 1 or 2 people could make a difference in 5 minutes of saving somebody or somebody dying in 20 minutes. And like I said, I've been over there since the late 1990s farming, and I've seen dead bodies. I've seen vehicles burn up. I've seen accidents. I've seen everything over there. So I think we do need something there. I know it's small and it takes money to function, but at least you have somebody there you can count on to be there. And if you have any questions for me, shoot. Guys, say I'm a farmer over there, but I live in Woodland. So that was my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Becky Young.
Hey, good morning. I'm Becky Young, and I wanted to concede or yield my time to Richard Young. I was told that that was allowed by Christine at our meeting.
I'm sorry, what is the question? What's the
At the last meeting at the firehouse, Christine, you'd mentioned that we didn't.
Trying
feel
to
like we-
cede her time to the chair to give him 6 minutes total instead of 3.
I think
it's-
maybe the chair can, that's in the discretion of the chair. So maybe
Okay.
when Mr. Young comes up, the chair can.
Okay,
determine.
for those of us who attended the town hall meeting, one of the biggest concerns was that we didn't feel, especially the board and my dad, there wasn't enough time to respond.
I see.
So Christine mentioned to us that we could all pool our time to
Okay.
sufficiently answer the question.
Okay.
The next speaker is Jane Young.
I just wish to give Rich my 3 minutes too.
And the next speaker is Melissa Young.
I'd like to give my 3 minutes to Richard also. Should be good.
Next speaker is Dan Ramos.
Good morning. Good to see everybody. It's been a while since I've been to LAFCo. I'm Dan Ramos representing our Wilson Ranch with Don Farms over there anyway, I've been involved in this Elkhorn area. I just added up for 38 years. I don't feel that old, but I've been involved specifically in the reclamation districts. As you know, we went through a consolidation a couple of years ago, and it's actually worked out very well in terms of what's going on here. And I just wanted to come here and pay my respects to the Elkhorn Fire Department. They've been such some great families that put that together way back when, from the Youngs to the Mattises to the Hanks, the Peabodys, and they really tried hard. So I know this is going to run its course, and we'll have the vote that will be coming up, and we'll see how this plays out. But I just wanted to make sure, and especially I want to take my hat off to Rich Young and being the fire chief for all the years here, and it's just a lot of dedication, and just hopefully there's some respect that goes on with that. But also I wanted to let you guys know at the RD district, we kind of, especially 537, we're playing a really big role there in that area there in terms of what we do in terms of reclamation and flood protection and whatever like that. And I just noticed that at the last minute here, it talks about transferring all the assets and stuff over to the Spring Lake. I would propose and recommend that not go to Spring Lake, that we look at terms of what role the RD can play in terms of the facilities there and what we can do to leverage that for the community. There's a group that's there that volunteer or citizens group that supports the fire department. A great group of local residents there. We would certainly, our district can play a role with them to manage, especially the assets of the facility that's there, and make it a community place for the community to gather and continue to use, as opposed to just going off into the sunset there. I mean, that's leased from the State Lands Department. We've been in some contact with them. I think they're willing to have the leases signed over to another governmental agency, which would be RD 537. We could coordinate with, I'm sorry, I don't know the name, but it starts with an E, the local community support group there, and work together to make that facility something that the Elkhorn people can continue to use and be proud of. So I really recommend that it not go over to Spring Lake, that we talk about how we can do it. 537 could play a role in some of those assets. Thank you.
And the final speaker is Richard Young.
Good morning. I'm Chief Richard Young. I'd like to publicly state my opposition to the dissolution of Elkhorn Fire Protection District. Following the publication of the MSR report in 2021 and LAFCo's recommendation to dissolve the district, our Board of Commissioners had every intention to oppose the decision. They were in preparation to do so. They were approached by Christine Crawford with a statement that Elkhorn is going to be dissolved regardless. You can do it the easy way or the hard way. Under tremendous pressure, the board ultimately made a resolution to dissolve. They didn't come to this conclusion of their own volition. They felt they had no other choice. Elkhorn is a unique district, and I don't claim that certain issues don't exist. However, since 2021, many of the concerns listed in the MSR have been proven to be either inaccurate or have been addressed and eliminated. I would like the board to know that we have not missed any calls since the report was published. Also, our call volume has not increased as predicted by Christine Crawford. In fact, it's decreased over the last 4 years. In addition to our good responses, we have acquired an entirely new fleet of equipment, achieved financial viability, and are completely self-sustaining, have minimized response times, and are training 6 new volunteers with a pilot program for cadets we plan on implementing. We have a brand new squad, brush rig, and water tender, all paid for. We also have been able to purchase the equipment without implementing a 218 increase. With our property tax and special assessment fees, we have an annual budget surplus. Our response times within the district are prompt, with the exception of southbound I-5 calls. We're in a better position to respond quicker from within the district. We are actively training 6 new volunteers and we have current mutual aid agreements in place with City of Woodland and West Sac. I understand that our volunteer roster is not ideal due to the nature of all volunteer rural district. Our numbers fluctuate. This is not an uncommon situation for a 100% volunteer fire department. There are programs and opportunities available that we are working towards implementing to combat this issue. Other fire departments in the area are taking advantage of newly graduated cadets to staff their stations for certain periods of time. We'd like to conduct a trial period with a paid firefighter in conjunction with utilizing cadets to staff our station full or part-time, depending on our resources. We can sort a program like this temporarily, and if successful, we will investigate ways to implement it permanently. There are tools at our disposal that we can take advantage of, such as fundraising, utilizing the CPI and escalator built into our 218 assessment, and possibly even contract with the county, since it's supposedly willing to spend upwards of $250,000 annually for the next 5 years. A program like this would not require anywhere near that amount of money for Elkhorn. Our ultimate goal is the safety of the community. The only way this can be accomplished is to leave the district intact. If emergency services are left solely to the cities of Woodland and West Sac, response times automatically become a 15-minute minimum and potentially up to 25 minutes to reach the more remote areas. This is during ideal conditions. In periods when the Yolo bypass is flooded and rush hour traffic and/or road closures exist, response times will be significantly higher. People's safety will be in jeopardy. I've dedicated 42 years of service to the residents of Elkhorn, and I'd like the opportunity to continue to do so. I want to address also the mailing list that Christine forwarded to our Board of Commissioners. She said she got her information from the Elections Department and from the assessor. On Monday, I picked up a walking county's election list, and I had our volunteers on Tuesday during training canvass our entire district. Of the 71 voters and residents on Ms. Crawford's list, 21 people no longer live or vote in our district. That represents there's a 30% difference there. There are only 50 residents in our district. I assume you guys are going to push this resolution through. So our only alternative is to rely on the protest vote. And that's something that we're kind of concerned about, because landowner protest form, which I downloaded, and also the voter registration request form that I've downloaded. I just want to make sure that every resident in our district gets one of these forms when the time comes. And then the landowner protest form, they're supposed to list their parcel numbers. Well, some of our larger landowners have over 20 parcel numbers. I mean, for them to list 12-digit parcel numbers, it's going to be a real hassle for them. Not that they can't do it if they really want to support us, but I can see that being a hardship for them to deal with that. These forms are pretty generic. There just says you're supposed to put down the title of the proposal and the proposal number. I don't know if there's a way if it comes to the protest vote for LAFCo to make it a little bit more user friendly. Some of these landowners are elderly and they're not real high up on their computer skills, just like myself. But and I feel that there needs to be a better, more of a better way to educate and let our residents know instead of just pulling something off the computer. When our volunteers went door to door, and a lot of people say, hey, we didn't get anything in the mail, and they asked about our fire department, and very supportive. They don't want anything to happen to us. So that's a good sign. I just worry about the people not being able to vote in a timely manner because they didn't get the information that they're supposed to get. That's about it. You guys have any questions? I'd like to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And is that
There are no more cards, Chair.
and there's nobody online?
No, there are no hands raised. I just want to mention that alternate Commissioner Vink is on, so when it's time to discuss, he's available to add his views.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion.
Yeah, thanks so much. Couple quick things. So actually just a quick question, Christine, if you can go back to the slides, I think it was the last slide, the sort of the next step slides. Supervisor Vega started out on, I think with a question around the protest vote as well, but I have a quick question for you. So, I mean, I just, want to be, or Eric too, potentially Eric May, I think in the, I recognize the thresholds. First of all, I think it's important to note, this process is a process that's set up by state law. This is not just a Yolo County, coming up with some process. So in terms of the parcel number issues being, listed and it's all very much prescribed by, Prop 218 state law, very prescriptive. So we're absolutely following that and adhering to that exactly to the letter of the law. So that's the first thing. But in terms of the results issue, so what happens, say hypothetically the protest is successful, the LAFCo action is nullified, then what, right? I mean, the whole point of because then I'll add a comment in before, but the question is, I am curious about like what happens if the protest vote is successful, because this is the first of numerous consolidations that's going to be happening in Yolo County and the fire districts. It's a sad reality, but that's true. I think it's coming over the course of the next couple of years. We've been looking at the LAFCOs and the MSRs for the LAFCOs, also prescribed by state law, have been happening for many years now. And there's been numerous recommendations for a long, long time about the need for some consolidation, not just in Yolo County, in other parts around the state. All these small districts, as fantastic. I'm grateful, Chief Young, for 42 years of service. That is totally remarkable. To dedicate 10 years to anything, it is an achievement, but 42 years is quite a milestone. And so first of all, just want to thank you for that. But I'm curious about the protest vote process. So if it were to be successful, then what? If the LAFCO action was terminated, then what is the question for me? So.
Well, the short-term impact would be that everything would remain as is. You know, all the districts would remain Elkhorn, CSA 9, Spring Lake
Okay.
as is.
And there's no, and that's would be true if there were other potential consolidations happening. So even though a district, you know, does not have enough staffing, there are potential challenges with, you know, finances. I mean, in terms of, you know, and not just in Elkhorn, but other districts. Like, so there's no ability to, only unless the LAFCO action is successful is the only way that consolidations can occur.
Well, yes and no. I think, and Eric maybe could speak to this a little bit more detail. I mean, I think immediately everything would remain the way it is, and we would need to reconvene and look at our options. One option that LAFCO has is we actually could just outright dissolve the district without a protest process. He's going to look that up.
Okay.
But the part of this that requires the vote is the annexing it to Spring Lake. So, I mean, we have a resolution from the Elkhorn Fire District requesting dissolution. We could just dissolve the district without a protest process, but I don't think that helps public safety in the community, right? So we've gone through a long process of trying to coordinate service contracts. You know, the county has graciously offered to fill the gap for 5 years. I mean, this has been the negotiations that have been going on for 15 or 18 months.
Yep.
You know, if LAFCO were to just dissolve the district outright, the special tax would go away. That's a potential revenue source that would be lost to help with this whole solution. And you know, nobody wants to leave the residents in the community, you know, without service out there. So, you know, I know the cities are frustrated with the lack of reciprocity in the mutual aid. I mean, they might take, you know, drastic measures to cut back their mutual aid or terminate their mutual aid. I don't know. But we would definitely need to reconvene and perhaps through the MSR process, look at a plan B. So Eric, I don't know if you had a chance to, I've stalled enough where Eric can look it up.
There's different mechanisms. There's one that would allow LAFCO to initiate a dissolution, but it would also have the protest process. So, and there's one other process in terms of, that's kind of like putting a district on probation in a way. But that also has a lot of procedural mechanisms. So Christine is correct that we would basically want to reassess then, okay, now that we have information from the voters and the residents, what is it that we might want to do as a plan B?
So, okay, thank you. Appreciate that. It's, the fire districts, for the most part, are, we'll say, subsidiary to the Board of Supervisors. Is that, I mean, there's some, I mean, and there's some separation, obviously. They're independent districts, but the county has been responsible for doing the creation of them over time. Is that not correct?
No.
No.
It's including, Elkhorn is a independent district, has its own board of directors.
No, I understand it has, I mean, I get that.
And they are created.
Board of Supervisors still appoints all the directors for the, we do, then which ones are we, okay, so we don't do none, so I mean, I apologize. We have we have many of our fire districts in which we do that.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. Yeah, the boards are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. I'm just trying to make sure, get some clarification.
Of all the 15,
Oh, no, I understand. There's a lot. That's the.
yeah, there's
the
a lot.
map was-
So, well, we have 15 fire protection districts right now. If memory serves, 10 or 11 of them are formed, and the Board of Supervisors acts as the board of the district. For most of them, except for No Man's Land, and they just pulled back Spring Lake. They delegated their authority to a local fire commission. But you're right, and those are ultimately the Board of Supervisors acting as the board of those districts. There are 4, I believe, fully independent districts, one of which is Elkhorn. Yolo Fire Protection District is the only one that elects its own board via election. The others are appointed by the Board of Supervisors to their board member role. Sorry, it's convoluted.
I know,
but-
I know. Yeah, we've been dealing with it for the last, obviously, 3 years. So here for, at least I have since I've been on.
Eric has a great
board, so-
chart that he made me that I wish I had for the screen, but maybe I could find it actually, if you want it.
Okay, so then maybe the chief, either Supervisor Vegas might know or the chief himself. I mean, for the directors of Elkhorn, are they appointed by the Board of Supervisors, ratified and appointed by the Board of Supervisors or not?
They're appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay,
To
thank you.
4-year terms.
Great.
So they are not at will to the Board of Supervisors. They serve independently as an independent district.
Okay.
Kind of like Yola County Flood. You guys
Huh?
appoint board members, but it's a separate independent
Sure,
district.
understood. What happens if, and this is true for any of the districts that the county board of supervisors appoints the members of, what if there is not an ability to have a board, fill those seats, right? And there's no quorums and for meetings and what are they able to conduct business? I mean, these are hypotheticals, but I'm curious, right? So I'm having that exact issue at the West Plainfield Fire District right now. We have several board members that have left their positions. We are not getting any applicants. We've been beating the bushes trying to get folks. So what happens if a board is then that is overseeing the district is unable to reach quorums to conduct business? I
So
don't know what the process is.
if it's a fire commission, then the Board of Supervisors can pull back its powers and then resume its role as the Board of Directors. So in those cases, the Board of Supervisors is the Board of Directors. They've just delegated some of their powers to a commission. In the case of an independent district where there is a separate board, like Elkhorn,
Yep.
then if it's unable to operate and the board is unable to appoint people, the Board of Supervisors is unable to appoint members to the Board of Directors, then we would consider this like probation process that I described, which includes among one of the ways that you can be put on this probation, not having meetings, not having a quorum, things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Just trying to make sure it's that, the flow chart would be helpful, but sorting those things out. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Good right now. I have some comments in a bit, but
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for kind of laying out the process for the protest vote because it is confusing. And thank you for sort of providing a little bit of context around how we got to where we are here today and how the protest vote would be used in the event that there were sufficient folks who decided they don't want this to go through. And then, first of all, thank you, Chief, for the work that you've done. I know your office, or you reached out to my office. I just got back in the office, so I wasn't available. I apologize for that. So a couple questions for, in light of the public testimony. So the resolution that's in front of us, is that time sensitive relative to the decision that's before us today in terms of so in other words, it has to be adopted as drafted in its current form in the event that we were to move forward. Is that correct? Because there was a question in the public testimony around how we might dispose or how the disposition of some of the property might be.
I can answer the question about the fire station.
Okay.
And I don't believe or recommend that it necessitates a change to the resolution, but the commission always has its authority to continue this item and amend, make any changes that it feels
Okay.
necessary. We've been working towards this July 1 turnover date just because it's convenient from a fiscal year perspective, but
in the event that we wanted to move forward, but we would like to explore what the police departments of Woodland and West Sacramento would do with a 1989 GMC 4x4. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what would be alternative options that we could consider, at least explore, in the event that there were some desire to do so.
yeah, so as it relates to the fire station, the land is owned by state the State Lands Commission, and it has a long-term lease with the Elkhorn Fire Protection District for the fire station, and there's stipulations that it's used for fire station purposes. The community has indicated that it would like to keep the fire station for public safety and community use. I've spoken with county staff. They don't necessarily want to own and pay for the maintenance of the fire station and would be willing to transfer it back to the community somehow, either via the Elkhorn Volunteer Association or Reclamation District 537 that Mr. Ramos was speaking to. But that's really up to the State Lands Commission agreeing to a lease transfer. And so the resolution is set, that hasn't occurred yet, or maybe the negotiations have started, but they haven't resolved to a decision. So the resolution is set up that kind of in the absence of doing anything, the fire station would transfer to the Spring Lake Fire Protection District as the successor agency. But it's clear that they'd be willing to transfer it back to the community if the State Lands Commission approves.
So, and just to put a point on that is that the lease, the vehicles, all of that will transfer to Spring Lake Fire Protection District. The Spring Lake Fire Protection District will have a advisory committee that will have representatives from Elkhorn and could make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors acting as the Board of Directors for Spring Lake about what happens with that lease.
I see.
To negotiate with the State Lands Commission a modification to the lease or a transfer, and also what happens to the other vehicles and things like that.
Okay, so whatever action we took here today, if we emphasize the desire to see that process or explore those options, we could.
Everything will just transfer to the Spring Lake District, and the Spring Lake District can then continue that discussion.
I see. So that's where the request would occur, essentially, with the Spring Lake District.
That would be our recommendation.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. So I don't have any other questions.
No other questions? Great. Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up Commissioner Villegas's question, if it was the desire of the commission to support the lease for the property, for the property to be used by for purposes of the community itself, would having that as a suggestion in the resolution make any difference? Would it help?
I'm not sure legally whether LAFCo can
Okay.
direct how the successor agency uses its assets.
Understood.
But
Okay.
that said, either it could be part of the discussion and the message that goes back to county staff and Spring acting, for Spring Lake, that is something the commission really supported.
Through the chair, I have a couple of questions for Chief Ramos, I'm sorry, Chief Young, if I might.
Sure.
Chief Young? First of all, thank you very much for your years of service.
You're welcome.
4 generations of my family in the fire service. So thank you for that. You said a few things. I just wanted to ask a few follow-up questions so I can completely understand here. You mentioned that there were some inaccuracies in the report. And so you did comment on a few of them. I'm curious to know what else you see as inaccurate. And then you also mentioned that some of the things that were in the report have been resolved. What are those things that have been highlighted in these MSRs and the report that have since been resolved?
The equipment that we had before was the oldest fleet in Yolo County. When I took over back in '84, we had one engine, a 1972 GMC. And we had an operating budget of around $8,000 from property taxes. That was it. When we started, well, I became chief because the Board of Supervisors was going to dissolve our district. The only difference was West Sac and Woodland did not want our district because they had no money. We didn't have any money. So after going through a couple of flood fights out there when we had levee breaches and whatnot, we had CCC crews out there. I knew that we had a community base of people that lived in the district, farmers, that we gathered up together and we did levee patrols, sandbagged the levee cracks and things like that. So I knew we had a core group of people out there. And that's when we formed the volunteer department. We had 12 volunteers at that time, all landowners in the district. And we initiated a firefighter one training program through the State Fire Marshal's office, where we trained for a year and a half through 2 paid trainers from the State Fire Marshal's office. And we all got our firefighter one status. And during that time, we just saved our money and tried to use the money just for protective gear for our firefighters. And then all the work that we did, we got through donations and fundraisers. All farmers are out there donated their equipment. We had the station, the concrete was donated by Tykert. A lot of the work was donated by the community, along with the farmers. So we built that station ourselves. We got the long-term lease for the State Lands Commission. First lease was 20 years, and then we renewed it. We have another 20 years. And we maintain the property out there, fire protection for the State Lands Commission. I personally farm on both sides of that mitigation property. My dad used to farm where the fire station is right now, so I have a long history of that area. But we saved our money, and we knew that we needed to upgrade our equipment. All the stuff that we had equipment donated. Our first grass rig was a 1956 grass truck donated by Spring Lake Fire Department. I mean, that was an old truck. It was better than nothing. And then over the years, we've had equipment donated. We had a grass rig, the old dog from Woodland Fire was donated to us. And we kept that thing until we had enough money to upgrade. We passed our 218. We were the first fire district to do a CPI escalator. And other fire districts now have included that in their 218. When Lisa Sabadini was working with the different fire districts, she asked me who we use, and I gave her the person that we use to initiate ours. So we saved our money. We saved our money, and little by little, we replaced our squad. We had to replace our main engine, and we got a great deal on a used truck from OES, and that's our main structure engine. Came fully equipped, paid $50,000 for it instead of $1 million. So now we have a new squad, we have a new brush rig, and we bought a brand new 2,000-gallon water tender. We donated our old water tender, which we got from Woodland Fire. Also, we donated that to RD 537. So that stays in our district. And we work very closely with the reclamation districts as far as levee maintenance, control burns and whatnot. As far as volunteers, we have 6 new volunteers right now. 2 of them have completed their EMT training, and the third one is just about done with his. We just lost one too. He has other family commitments, so he had to leave. But we do have a staff of new volunteers. We want to try to implement some sort of program similar to like Yolo. I've talked to the different fire chiefs and asked them, hey, how much does it cost to man a guy for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day? And they gave me some rough numbers. We've looked into that. When we tried to go for the Prop 172 money, which we're not going to get, our long-term goal was to use that money to try and man our station Right now, we still do. On red flag days, we have volunteers that will staff the station. Inclement weather, red flag fire days and things, they'll just come and stay at the station. We give them a stipend of $40, but they're dedicated. They want to, and you know what? Most of the time, we don't get a call. So they sit there for 8 hours and nothing happens. So you can't, there's no rhyme or reason to when we get the calls. We've averaged about 105 calls a year for the past 4 years. Because I've been keeping very close track myself, physically writing down every single incident number, location, time, who responds. A lot of times we'll get paged out for a call, and if it's on southbound I-5, depending on how the call comes out, vehicle accident, unknown injuries, say, hey, mutual aid with Woodland, because they have a station right there on Pioneer. They can jump right on the freeway and get to it. We have to go all the way into Woodland. Either if we're on the freeway, we can cut across right at the end of the bypass. But if we're committed in the bypass on County Road 22, we have to drive all the way into 102, come double back. I've mentioned that since 2018 to the supervisors, but nothing's been done. Like I said, we have my former assistant chief is a full-time paid firefighter for City of West Sacramento, and he helps do training with us. We have another volunteer that comes out and has been working with the new volunteers, and we want to push that. It's very disappointing when I heard that the county agreed to supplement City of Woodland and City of West Sacramento, $250,000, when the fire districts of Yolo County have been asking for some sort of sustainable funding. All our money would go to staff our station. We have enough money to maintain our daily operations by our 218 and our property tax monies now. We generate about $115,000 a year. And we have probably operating budget about 50 to 60,000. So we bank money every year, and we save that money and we use it to purchase safety gear or whatever the fire department needs. So we are financially liquid. We paid cash for all of our equipment. We don't have payments. We don't have any debt. The long-term lease we have with the State Lands Commission is for $0. So it really gripes me that the county has agreed to give money to two city fire departments. Woodland, they use the auto aid, seems like, against us because they were dispatched the same time we were. Well, any incident on I-5 southbound, they're going to beat us. And then they cancel us. Well, then we show up on paper as no response, no response, no response. A lot of the calls, they may come out as southbound I-5. And so by the time someone dispatch asks for a cross street.
Excuse me, I'm gonna just I'm gonna redirect here a little bit and make sure that all of your questions
My
have been
question has
answered.
been answered, yeah. Thank you.
I'm
That's
rambling.
okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
I know it's hard when you get up there and you sort of, lose track of what the
Yeah, I'm
question
glad you
was.
got me.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have comments later, but those are my questions.
Sure. Okay, if there are no further comments, okay, now.
So I just wanted to address Mr. Beeman's concern about the response time. And my understanding is, from what I was reading there, is currently Elkhorn typically only has one person responding to an incident at a time. And that if we were to move forward with this, that if Woodland or West Sacramento was responding, there would be more people responding, but it would just be, the response time would be longer. Am I understanding correctly?
I think that the chiefs could, and Chief Zane's in the audience from the city of Woodland and probably can speak to this with better accuracy. But I think there was actually a call about a week and a half ago that might be a good case study just for an example. My understanding is there was a wedding venue up in the north part of the district as you north of the trestle and where the river train is, north up that road somewhere, there's a wedding venue, and a couple leaving out of the wedding pulled over with a heart issue, and someone who was there started providing CPR. And so I got a copy of the records of like the NECA dispatch data, and Chief Young was able to respond within 15 minutes to that and take over CPR. The city of Woodland, once they were called, it took them 18 minutes to get there. And it actually took AMR 21 minutes to get there once they were called. So, and it sounds like there were some particularities that in a conversation I had with Chief Zane, it sounded like that was a longer than typical response for them. But I think that's just an example of what the timelines look like.
Anything else on this side? Okay. So I only have a few questions. I think everybody here has covered most of the thoughts that I had. As far as the protests, the number of protests, it was interesting to me to hear the difference in numbers from I guess where you're pulling this information about how many people are there. And I think that's a really critical, especially when there's such a low number of folks. And so, can we be absolutely certain that we have an accurate number for, when we're tallying this up and, right?
It's as Commissioner Luke Frericks was mentioning earlier, it's prescribed by state law, and we're directed to pull our data from the elections office on a certain, in a certain time frame. I will talk to them and do some research. We got a number, probably a dozen or so mailings came back in the mail from the registered voter list. So I can go down and talk with the elections office about how to make adjustments and come up with a closer official list so the percentages are fair. I also heard from the board chair that like 2 of the people on the list have passed away. So sounds like there are some understandable issues with the elections office not having a exactly up-to-date, address list, but that's the official list that we're directed to get it.
And and then the other thing is around the forms, and those forms are who
Yeah,
puts those
so
out?
we do have generic forms on our website, and I was having a quick conversation with Chief Young before the meeting started, and we will do a mailing of the notice, and I'm happy to include the form, and we can fill in the title and everything so that people don't have to know that when we fill out the form. In terms of there are some large landowners out there that own multiple parcels. And it sounds like in the case, again, I was having this conversation with Chief Young before the meeting started. The largest landowner out there in terms of assessed value is Tevaldi Farms, but apparently they own some other lands that are under a different name. And so, we can do our best with our spreadsheets to find all the parcels that are owned by the names that were given. At the hearing itself, I plan to come with our computers and our spreadsheets so we can help people look things up. But it could be as simple as going on the assessor's website and just, printing off the list of the parcels that you own and, attach that to the form. I'm happy to take and make it as user-friendly as we can, but there's only so much we can do,
No, I understand, but I do think that, this is a challenge, especially for, folks who are older and trying to make this process as fair as possible, in any way that we can would be great. Okay.
Yeah, I'll mail out, the forms to everyone. Hopefully people will have their property tax, it's April 10th-ish, so maybe they have their tax forms handy with their parcel numbers listed to make it a little easier.
Okay, great. All right, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to move to comments.
Yeah, happy to start off with a few things. So I think, we're in a time where, we're in an unenviable position, right? Because for a variety of reasons. One, what has been, the current situation is not ideal. Like, that's my personal opinion, certainly. But I also think that we have been, Yolo LAFCo, before I was on the Board of Supervisors and before I was on LAFCo, has been having similar discussions for many years about potential consolidation of districts. This is not limited to Yolo County alone. This is happening in other parts of the state. I think obviously safety of the public is a very key issue for all of us. The volunteer base shrinking, is happening in numerous areas. Like every one of the districts that I represent in terms of the fire protection districts, the exact same issue. Volunteer base is shrinking, and that is a real challenge. So I think adequate coverage is paramount, right? And when responding to calls. So you gave one example of just, a couple weeks ago or so, but it's a lot of these calls or numerous calls have had one person responding. And while that is certainly admirable, I just don't, I think a lot of it, I'm not in the fire protection service, but I also know many people who are, and one person responding is not adequate in terms of ideal level of coverage. So that's a real challenge. I understand the geography is a bit of a challenge too, just in terms of the traffic and the challenges getting both either from the Woodland side of things or the West Sac side of things. So again, very grateful to Elkhorn, the district, and particularly Chief Young for many decades of service. But I do think that, this is likely to be the first of numerous additional reorganizations or consolidations. In the county and frankly in other parts of the state too. Certainly, it's happening. We're not doing this in a vacuum. It's happening because it's longer than just it's a more of a challenging problem in a lot of places. So not just YOLO. I also want to say, I think that something that hasn't been raised yet today is liability issues are real for especially board members of these districts. I think that the moving to an advisory committee then potentially puts liability back on the Board of Supervisors, but actually that's, you sign up for that kind of work. I think that that's a real challenge for potential fire districts and not only their commissioners, but also potential staff and volunteers. So that's an issue that exists, especially if, in a case where less than adequate response or coverage is concerned. I think that could be a real issue in the future. I am appreciative of the kind of direction of. Can you put up the map of all the districts, please? I appreciate the moving in the direction of the advisory committee as well. I think that I think we made it very clear that the county wants to see representation from the Elkhorn area on it, but it's ultimately would be advisory to the Board of Supervisors. And I think that this has been the case for a number of other districts around the county, that the board has been very interested in hearing from. Thanks, this is very helpful. The board has been very interested in hearing from and taking the recommendations that come from the advisory committees. But I will say that if you take a look at this map right now, that the blue outlined area, the West Valley Regional Fire Protection District, that's what sort of Spring Lake and north and south, as well as Elkhorn would be this is the first of a numerous, in my opinion, steps that we're going to be taking in this regard in the years ahead. So, many jurisdictions in California have a countywide fire service. Obviously, we have our 4 cities, and they each have their own city fire departments. The university has its own fire department. The tribe also has its own fire department. But I think when you look at all those red dots up there, where all the fire stations are, There are definitely a lot of areas that I think are going to, again, be considered ripe for additional reorganizations or consolidation. So I think that is, I mean, whether people are, I've known, people generally don't like change, and I get that, but I'm probably in that same category myself most of the time. But I think that there's times when that kind of these changes are necessary. And I do think that I do think that's where we're headed. So, I mean, I think Elkhorn has been at the, it's sort of the beginning of this process. And, but I think we're going to be seeing over the course of the next couple of years, a lot more in the way of consolidations for a whole range of reasons. I also just want to say thank you certainly to, Chief Zane specifically, who's been doing a lot of work, both, of course, on behalf of Woodland Fire Department, but also Spring Lake. I want to thank West Sac Fire Department as well. I mean, again, not the most ideal situation in terms of the geography and how the distances, but I think that fundamentally at the end of the day, there's a whole range of reasons why we kind of are at this point, and I'm prepared to move forward with the recommended action and happy to make that motion appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller? Do you want to go next?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Frericks. I agree with virtually everything that you had shared. I want to also, again, thank you, Chief, for your work. I want to thank the district. This is a really good example of a legacy district. And change is very difficult. I understand that. I want to also thank Chief Zane and all the other chiefs that worked on this. There was a lot of time, effort, and very careful thought into what the ongoing issues and concerns are, and what is the best path forward. There are years of documented issues and concerns regarding service sustainability. I don't hear that changing. And I am concerned with, as Commissioner Frericks is, with respect to public safety and the safety of the responding fire personnel. It concerns me greatly to hear that one person goes out on a call. To me, that's a concern for the first responder. Yeah, just I appreciate the additional information that we got today. I would like to see if there's any way. I do appreciate the idea of the fire station facility, that facility retained somehow for local community use. But I also will be supporting this recommendation. This is not just happening in Yolo County. It is happening across the state. And these volunteer models worked when they were created and have been, some have been sustainable over time, but we are in different times now. And I don't see this model being sustainable in the times that we're in today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo my colleagues' appreciation for the dedicated service of Chief Young. Thank you so much. But I do agree with what my fellow commissioners are saying, and I do also hope that the facility will be available for use for the community. That's important, and that's an asset for the community there. So I will be supporting this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also want to share my appreciation for Chief Young and the work that you've done. And frankly, we owe you a huge debt of gratitude, and so does everybody else who received the services over the course of the many years that you provided it on a volunteer basis. That's to be appreciated, certainly, but I think the unfortunate circumstances, as Commissioner Ferricks alluded to, is that this is happening all over the place. We are not unique in Yolo County. The circumstances that you are facing are happening to volunteer districts all over the place. And so it just happens to be that I think we're on the front end of trying to figure it out and frankly be a bit more proactive in this space than reactive, which I think many others are struggling with. It's all been said, so I'm not going to repeat it. I will simply say that on our forecasted work schedule for LAFCo staff in the very near future, the municipal service review process will begin again. There's a lot of work that's gone in to doing kind of our background research and analysis of what is the status of our fire districts and how can we make them sustainable and how do we make them better for our public and how do we make them financially, fiscally responsible and sustainable. It's happening everywhere. And so I would simply say, given that staff is starting that work right now, I believe in earnest, that we coordinate those efforts with the county, who has a lot of information already, not least of which is the report that was done about 8 years ago that has a lot of really good information that should probably be shared with this board or this body going forward when we analyze the MSR process.
So I would also like to add my gratitude to the number of years that you've contributed. And I know that it's difficult to have this legacy, sort of feel like it's being just taken without this not being something that you want. But I do think that, times unfortunately have changed, and, people have become very sophisticated at suing. So there is a lot of this that's happening, and we really do have to think about not just the legal ramifications, but also, what is best for communities. And with a lot, and it's not just, with the volunteer fire departments, but all service agencies or all service clubs even, you see this decline in people that are willing to step up. And I hope that this trend doesn't continue, that people do come back to wanting to serve their communities and wanting to, step up when they're needed. But right at this moment, that's really not where we're at. It does sound like you have a lot of support from the community, and it sounds like there are a lot of people in the community who, appreciate, this service. And so you do still have this ability to get folks to come out and do the protest vote. And this is why I think it's really important that we make that process as fair as possible. But I also will be supporting this resolution. So with that, unless there's any final remarks, I'm going to, I guess there are two things here that we have to vote on. Is that correct?
Items 2, 3, and 4, I think. Adopt the resolution, determine that the project exempt from CEQA, as well as direct the staff to conduct a protest hearing.
Okay, so do we want to do that all as one motion?
I think it's up to you,
Yes.
but yeah.
Okay, and you said you were going to make that motion?
So moved, yeah. Items
Great.
2, 3, and 4, yep.
And the second?
Second it. Can I just, with a clarifying that we adopt the resolution as amended?
Yes, adoption of the resolution is
Right.
amended, yeah.
Okay,
Commissioner Frericks,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia Cadena, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Villegas,
Aye.
Commissioner Partida.
aye,
Motion passes.
great. And thank you everyone for coming out. All right, that moves us to the next item on our agenda, which is consider and adopt LAFCO's 2-year strategic work plan.
Thank you. As you recall, at our last meeting in March, we held a strategic priority setting session to generate priorities and ideas for LAFCO's work in the next 2-year work plan. With the help of JD, we transcribed the feedback we received and put them into a more action-oriented work plan. And what I wanted to do today was just to kind of go through the priorities and solicit any feedback from the commission in terms of additional things and clarifying points. So if there's no questions, I'll just launch into that. Item number 1 is the priority that was very high on everybody's list at the priority setting session was addressing fire and emergency operations and regional coordination. And so we do have the municipal service review for fire services on tap for the next fiscal year. You know, we also, in light of the grand jury report on the Oakdale fire, I know, you know, there might be some indication of looking to LAFCO to resolve a number of issues through its MSR process. And so if you could maybe provide some insight on whether these items captures everything or if there's things that we missed. If you'd like, I can read them one by one, but don't need to. Just let me know.
Commissioner
how you wanna do
Ferks.
this.
It's too bad everybody left already because they would have probably appreciated this part of the discussion. So appreciate your just kicking things off. I would say, and I mean, looking at, we did have our retreat and we had all these items. I think honestly, I mean, just, especially given the item we just had, and then also we were all pretty uniform in our discussion at the retreat. I just think this is it right here. I mean, that's the 2-year work plan. Not, I mean, I know there's a hierarchy of, but I mean, when we are getting to page 3 or 2 or 3, and it's, I mean, engaging staff and commissioners. I mean, all this, yeah, I mean, those are all I know we all know they're very important. I just think fundamentally, end of the day, this is it right here. In my opinion, my personal opinion, the next 2 years. I mean, there's obviously some things that day-to-day kind of work that will happen with you all as staff and, engaging with commissioners and things like that. That is one of them, that working at making sure that the websites are, there's transparency on the websites for the different, agencies and such. But it just feels like this is fundamentally like the priorities 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever. I mean, this seems to be our calling for the next 2 years, in my opinion. So sorry to interrupt, but it just
No, not at all. I hear you, and I heard the commission loud and clear at the March meeting on that. I guess to that end, I mean, I tried to bullet out all the things I could think of, all the topics that you were interested in a deeper dive in. So if there's just anything topically, an area that you can think of that's not on this list, let us know. But otherwise, we'll put a big asterisk by this as the, all other priorities fall behind this one.
Yeah. I'm looking to my right here. Any commissioners here want to, anything?
Yeah. The only thing I would, yeah, and I would characterize, and I would double down on what Commissioner Ferrick said, in part because it transcends all the critical issues that we are facing as a community, right? It's got the public safety, it's got the financial sustainability, it's got, the fire and life safety goes beyond just police and fire response time. It's about flood, it's about fire. It has all the tentacles that reach into our community. So I would agree. I mean, I think this is really, as I look at it now, the way you've laid it out, Christine, thank you. It really does transcend all the critical steps, or the things that we are all that we all value. And so I would agree.
Yeah. No. I agree as well. So I think thank you for doing this work. Thank you for taking all that, information that we gave you and consolidating it. And it's great.
I
Okay.
have some other priorities that I want to flip through
Sure.
quickly. Yeah.
Sure.
We mentioned, we had this conversation. I'm sorry, oh, sorry. Thank you. So we had this conversation too at the retreat, but I'm just curious. Is there a way that that LAFCo can have a dedicated liaison from the county to work with LAFCO over the course of the next year to 2 years in getting this work done?
Yeah, we talked about that. I remember that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say, so for, can't speak explicitly on behalf of quote unquote the county, but I would say, I mean, I think it's a team effort. I think there's numerous people on that team, right? County council's office, there's right, different folks so I don't know that it's just one person, like, that's explicitly tasked with being a liaison. I think it's probably numerous people probably within the CAO's office, basically, including county council's office. Yeah. So but just generally kind of spitballing and not saying that that's what's going to happen, but yeah, it seemed to be the kind of process.
I'll add something to the action items on that.
Okay.
Yeah, point of contact. Also, I know, well, I'm not exactly sure where the county's at about potentially hiring a fire warden or rescoping the OES manager position to include fire warden responsibilities, but that might be a potential person to include on a planning effort as well.
Great. And I I apologize. I realize that Commissioner Vink is online and I don't think we turned to him during the last.
I told him to let me know if he wants to
Okay,
speak. So
all right, great.
I'll let you.
Okay. So are we okay with this? Is there more? It sounded like you had something you wanted to add, Christine?
I'm going to add an
clarification?
additional action item about talking to the county about establishing a team or a point of contact.
Okay. And did you have a question?
No, I was just saying then we have additional priorities that I wanted to go through.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were trying
No,
to
go
wrap
ahead.
up.
No, go ahead.
So, recognizing that these are, lesser priorities, but we did have a conversation about climate and environmental justice. And I jotted down the action steps that I heard. One thing that I remember from the conversation that I just need clarification on, there was a conversation when we were kind of reporting back together and talking as a whole group about, I believe the two county supervisors were referring to the fact that the county had a grant funding program. And I just, I wasn't clear, or if maybe you could help clarify, like how you were envisioning, if was that intending for LAFCo to apply for grants to do some of this work, or how did you see the grants program that the county has looping into that? Just if you could add a little color to that would be helpful if you have any, or I can just go talk to county staff and see what's there.
And I think just having a conversation with Kristen Wraithwall, I mean, and the kind of sustainability staff is probably the way to go.
Okay.
Just and see, I think she probably has a pretty good sense of what, what opportunities exist and how there could be partnership there and what's needed. So that'd be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this?
I don't think so. Do we need a vote on this one as well?
Just direction
Yeah.
is fine.
Just direction.
Go to the. So in terms of increasing accountability for municipal service reviews, there was a conversation around trying to have more teeth. And so we built some action items about presenting the MSR at each agency's governing body, requesting a written response from the subject agencies, more like kind of similar to what the grand jury does. right now we do, put together a cover letter and send it to the agencies, kind of summarizing the recommendations, but then it stops there. So this would go a little bit further and actually put staff in front of their governing body and requesting a written response. Anything else on that?
I like the 3.3. I think that's good.
Okay, and then item 4 was around developing better communication and outreach strategy with special districts. There was discussion about potentially hiring a consultant to develop a communication strategy. And we did do a roadshow last fall with the cities and the county. But I think with the special districts, it might need to look different. So this is a little bit, I don't have a super fine-tuned vision of what this might look like, but whether that would be like a countywide town hall special district where you tried to get everyone to come to that, but it's a little bit challenging because a lot of the volunteers, this isn't their day job. And so sometimes it's hard to get people to attend. It also could look like when we do our municipal service reviews and are in front of each governing body, doing some additional outreach or a combination of both. But, let me just tee it up to get some input from the commission on what you'd like to see.
Okay, yeah. So for the special districts, you're saying it's not their day job. So would holding them in the evening or on I don't know, a Saturday, would that be an option or something along those lines of?
It's certainly an option for me. It's just trying to, I guess, outreach to figure out what would be most available and where people would come.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Anything on these 2 priorities? No.
With respect to the LAFCo Roadshow, I also wonder if, if there are other entities besides districts, other stakeholders. We talked about that. I think there's further down the road, we don't need to do it today, but a need to identify who are the target audiences and what's the why of the messaging. And I think the goal of these is not only to educate and inform, but to build relationships. So rather than introducing LAFCo to entities that we're just about to do a service review on, is a year or 2 before the service review that we're building that relationship. So by the time the time comes around to do the service review, we're not making that introduction, but there's an established relationship. Thank you.
Okay.
Priority 5 was around engaging staff and commissioners, and this was just about, I think it was a pretty straightforward item, just about building, better lines of communication between staff and the commission. Item 6 has to do with just the mandated items that LAFCo has to do anyway with completing the municipal service reviews and completing applications on a timely basis when they came in. On tap, we have fire for the next fiscal year, and following that, a review of the city and water and sewer services. And I included this part of our update schedule just so you can see there's quite an array of agencies and stakeholders involved in each of these efforts.
Wow. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, anything on the last priorities that were presented here? Any questions, any comments? Looks like you've got your work cut out.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
All right.
So I guess, do I need a motion to adopt the work plan with those changes? What did I recommend? Okay. Yeah.
I move to adopt our 2-year strategic work plan for the coming fiscal year and the year after.
Second.
Commissioner Frericks.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia Cadena, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Villegas, Chair Pratita.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we are on to our next item, which is consider and adopt the LAFCO draft budget for fiscal year 26-27.
Thank you. So adopting the LAFCO budget is a two-step process. We're required to have a hearing on both the draft and final budget to provide ultimate transparency to our funding agencies, which are the city and the county. The city's apportion 50% and the county pays the other 50% of our budget. What I put forward is just a straight budget. I didn't make any adjustments because I wanted to get feedback and direction from the commission. It shows a 5% budget increase just coming from salaries, both the salary adjustment that you recently made to the EO position and step increases for JD and Desi. The county is also directing all the departments to assume a 3% COLA, although my understanding is actual negotiations are resulting in somewhat less of a COLA than that. But for now, they want us to use a 3% COLA. One thing that we heard when we did our road shows last fall is everyone was very appreciative of how lean and mean Stat LAFCO's organization, relatively affordable for the value that we provide. But the flip side of that is it makes it really difficult for us to absorb changes in cost increases. And so even though our budget is only going up, this draft budget shows a $32,000 increase from just staff salaries. Because we don't have as much of a fund balance carryover, the cost to the agencies is actually going up, projected to go up $95,000, 3 times higher. And I believe that's mostly due because for the whole Elkhorn proposal, we absorbed all the costs of that. We waived all the application fees. And so we absorbed all the staff time and the consultants that were hired and whatnot. So there's substantially less fund balance that we can use to offset county costs. And there are some limitations in the code about, cutting the LAFCO budget. We could certainly keep it flat, which would, and you could direct us to reduce the draft budget by 32,000 or whatever, just to keep it flat. But you'd have to make specific findings and it would be really difficult to go deep and keep the agency's costs flat about, cutting $95,000 out of our budget. When our whole budget is around 700,000. So what I did in the staff report is basically offer some, potential levers, and kind of highlighted where, adjustments can be made. There's only kind of a few key places here and there, but I think mostly what I'm looking for from the commission today is direction along the lines of, hey, agencies are really, I know the county and the cities are really struggling with reduced funding. We really need to keep, our budget flat, or on the other end of the spectrum, hey, our fire MSR is a huge priority and LAFCO needs to invest a lot of resources to solve problems that are larger than LAFCO. And, maybe we even want to increase our professional services budget to accommodate some of those potential consultant costs, not cut them. So if you provide me some feedback about where kind of you'd like to see the LAFCO budget land, I can, and if you have any specific directions on how you want to make those adjustments, I can go back and tinker with it and then reflect back a revised final budget at the May meeting. I did, FYI, send out this draft budget to all the city and county managers when the packet went out a week ago. And I happened to be having a conversation with Ken Hyatt about the Elkhorn item anyway, and he mentioned he appreciated my email about the draft budget, and he indicated that, to the city of Woodland, it was only a $5,000 increase, and he didn't, see that as a deal breaker. But other than that, I haven't received any feedback from the CAO or the other city managers. But once you give me direction on the draft budget and adopt a draft budget, I'll send it out again to all the city managers and the county administrative officer. And, and it's an iterative process getting to the final budget. So,
And some of that depends on the feedback you get from the cities and folks, right? I mean, if they say.
well, ultimately, it's up for the commission to set the budget. I just give you the feedback that they provide me. But they're directed by law to fund our budget. So the budget that you set is what they have to pay.
Got it. Right. Any questions over here, comments, directions? Yes.
So when I look this over, I don't see anything, extraordinary that needs to be addressed. So I'm comfortable with what's being presented.
Anything on this side?
I do have a question. I'm sorry, I should have asked this yesterday, but this has just all come together for me as a result of all the conversations today. Given the scope of the upcoming fire services MSR and the critical nature of this particular MSR that you will be doing, is it reasonable to think that $30,000, providing the full 30,000 is dedicated just to that, right? That we don't have any other professional services. Is that a reasonable amount?
Admittedly, I haven't fully scoped the MSR yet. Likely not. You're also potentially looking at, part of the work plan is looking at hiring strategists to come up with, public marketing materials for a road show. And I hear you loud and clear that that's not the highest priority. So maybe that goes to next year, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. But yeah, I probably need to more deeply scope the MSR.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts here? Okay. So this doesn't need a vote, right?
Yeah, no, there is. Yeah.
It is?
If we could just check for public comment, there's nobody
Okay.
online who has their hand raised.
I don't see any public comment.
I have no comment cards, Chair.
Okay, great.
So I apologize, I guess then you do want a motion though, yes, Eric? This is adopt, so assuming so, adopt the draft budget. Okay, so moved.
Commissioner Frericks, Commissioner Garcia Cadena, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Villegas, Commissioner Partida.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now we're on to the executive officer's report. Okay.
Other than what's in the packet. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners report? Commissioners have anything to report out? Anything exciting happening in your areas? No? Okay. Okay, well then I guess we are on to adjournment. Yep.
All right.
Thank you,
thanks.
everyone.
Thank you, appreciate it.